So we are on Ayin, sorry, Pei Zayin, Amud Aleph. We are, so this is some of where we're up to and what we're explaining. So basically we were talking about how this, the shaft of drawing water works and by what principle it works. And the question is, are we allowed to what extent are we allowed to cut things up to use them, or do they have to actually be built? Like how much are we allowed to, play around with the fabric of reality in order to make what we want? So here, so this is okay. So the question is, so we started with a straight platform, and we just cut out a hole in the middle. Are we allowed to view the currently horizontal base as being vertical? So that's the question that we left off on, and now we're still going to try and figure it. So now we're continuing from there. So, okay, so the first words of the page are right. So we had that was the opinion of Rabbi Chananya ben Agvaya, who says that again, if you cut out a hole that's 4 by 4 out of that's 4 by 4 tefachim out of a 4 by 4 amot platform, then it would work. Okay, so that means that we can include the sides even though they're not yet made into the shaft we want to draw water with. So Amar le Abaye, v'dilma lohi ad kol kamar Yehuda hatam ela de amar gud aches mechitzda aval kof v'gud lo. No, so maybe that's not necessarily a valid option, because when Rabbi Yehuda had stated that we let you extend the wall downwards in terms of the case of the hanging walls, it's a good aches. So good aches is only if you have walls and you're extending them, but it doesn't mean that you can simply fabricate walls out of something that's not yet in the wall shape. Okay, so that was the question. Okay, so we're saying that no, that Rabbi Yehuda does not agree with Rabbi Chananya ben Agvaya. Okay, so and now we're going to say that even Rabbi Chananya ben Agvaya isn't really saying what we think he's saying. So Rabbi Chananya ben Agvaya hatam ela biyama shel Tiberia. Ho'il v'yesh ba uganim v'yarod v'karbifot makifot ota v'bishar memot lo. So when do we allow you to use this interesting kula of just cutting out a little hole and saying the walls work? That only works around the ocean by right, the Sea of Galilee, right? So Yomi Kinneret. Right, called Yama Shel Tiberia because, well, that was the main city that was nearby. Nowadays, if you told somebody where is the Yama of Tiberia, they would probably be very confused. But back then, that's how they referred to the Yama Kinneret. So again, so that is different because basically the way that it was set up is that it was all built around already. So it was basically a fenced-in ocean. So call it an ocean is a little, or a sea is a little bit generous because it's basically a lake, and by that I mean it's a very small lake compared to the Great Lakes that we are right next to. So yeah, but because it's fully built up all around it, therefore we allow a lesser version of making of the wall for the shaft to draw water because it already has its walls. Okay, so Amar Abaye. L'divrei Rabbi Chananya ben Agvaya, haytasmuch al hakotel palcho mishlosh tefachim. Shtarich shehei orka arba amot v'rachba achad asar u'mashu. So it says not only that, but even according to Rabbi Chananya ben Agvaya, if it's near a wall, and if it's too close to a wall, it also generates a problem. So here we go. So here's a picture of Tiberia from, again, an idealized version from quite a while ago. So again, so we've got the various things on the sides. So we have the Oganim, which is these nice embankments. We got the cities. We've got the Karpefot, which is the places that are stored for stuff. Again, so that's what we had over there. And now we're saying that our case here is that if it's close, Here now we're talking about the details of at what point do we say that this platform is a standalone location that we can start carving out according to Rabbi Chaim ben Akvaya, assuming that you built this on your house by Yam HaKinneret, to draw water from the Kinneret. I guess similarly, you could say the same if you had another pond or lake sufficiently built up around it, but seemingly this is the only one that they consider to be sufficiently built up. Okay, so we are okay. So now we're at, okay. So let me repeat again Abaye's statement. So Amar Abaye L'divrei Rabbi Chananya ben Akvaya Hayta smucha al kol tov pacham mishlosh tefachim tzarich shehei orka 4 amot v'rachba 11 u'mashu. So in order for this, if it's more than 3 tvachim off of the wall, then we require the platform to be at least 4 amot away from going out away from the wall, as well as being at least longwise 4 amot and away from the wall 10 tvachim. Right, I mean the width here. So it's in total that'll be at least 14. Okay, so this is the structure we're dealing with right here. So now we're going to ask. That's how we limits the case. So he says that you need to have. We're not quite so generous, and we say that you need to. That if it's not attached to the wall, you have to do a little bit more in terms of the strength of your walls that we're gonna create despite not having done anything. So, okay, then Haita Zakufa, and if the balcony was had walls around it. So let's see, do we have a picture here? Here we go, Haita Zakufa. That's this one right here. Okay, great. So, and if for some reason, I'm not sure why you would have built your balcony this way, but I guess if you wanted this for privacy more for them to actually, go out on it. So let's say if you'd put the balcony that way. So in this case, if you're trying to basically drop out the window and drop it behind where that board is, so you would need it to, the board would have to be at least 10 tvachim tall. It would need to be at least 6 tvachim and a little bit more on the sides, so that way you could actually get out there. So you'd have to have some space on the side here to actually stand up. So yeah, this is right, because that way you could stand out in theory. Again, I'm not sure why. This is an extremely unsafe thing to do, but the theory is that if it's this big, you'll be standing on the edge, and then the 4 tvachim here is you'll be lowering down your bucket, and then you'll hopefully then you'll be able to get your water out. I'm still very unclear as to, this just seems very unsafe. Okay, we'll leave safety out of it, and we'll just say this works. Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna break my head over trying to make things safe when they're clearly not worried about that. All right. Okay. Ela Hadatanya Rabbi Chananya ben Akvaya Omer Gazuzra Shlish ba Arba Amot al Arba Amot Cholkek ba Arba al Arba Umamale Hechi Mishkach Allah. So we're like, so now that we've quoted all these other interesting things that Rabbi Chaim ben Akvaya has stated. Wait, I skipped one. Oh no, I skipped one. Did I? Oh no, yeah, I did one. I did. I skipped one. I skipped Amar Huna Breder of Yeshua. Haito Medet Bekaren Zavit. Sarich Shehei Govha Sar Tvachim Rachba Shnei Tvachim Ushnei Mashuhuyu. And similarly, if you decided to put this or platform in the corner or like this, so again, the distance you need is different. You'd only need you'd only end up needing being 10 tall and 2 wide, because we're using it as the extension of the wall. So therefore, we're using lava for the last three tvachim, and therefore all good. Now this is sufficiently sized. Again, please don't try using this ever, because this just seems like not safe. Yeah, doesn't seem very safe, but I digress. Okay, so now that we've mentioned all these interesting cases of structures you can build in order to get your water in, so the question is, so back to our original question of Reb Chaim ben Akbaya, so like, how is that useful if we have all these other methods? Why would we try to use his cutting out of a whole carry if we can just do these other things that seem to be simpler? So if Reb Tanya Reb Chaim ben Akbaya Omer, Zustra sheyesh ba'arba amot al ba'amot, chokek ba'arba al arba amalei, hechi mishkachala. So what's the case where we're going to try and do the cutting a hole out in the middle instead of doing the standing up straight one? So the case is Davida ki asita. It was made in the shape of a mortar. So what that means is, again, picture helps. Picture is worth 1,000 words. Because basically the issue is that it's not when you actually had constructed, you didn't really make a balcony. What you did is you actually made a platform in the middle of the water. You made a little dock in order to access the water, and then pass it over to your house, which is somewhere over here. And that's why he recommended this, because you're not relying on any of the other walls or anything else, and that's why you had to do it like this. Not that I would. This does not seem like the most sturdiest of structures, but if you can swim, I guess it's not so bad. Worst case scenario, you fall into the water and it'll be okay. Okay, and then here are some other opinions as to how that worked, right? In terms of how you'd have built the structure, in terms of what that looked like. Okay. So now we're gonna. Okay, so now we're continuing on with the next Mishnah, which will hopefully bring us back to, we're still dealing with water, but hopefully it'll be a little more familiar. Because this. Okay, we'll explain it and then we'll see if it looks more familiar to modern day examples or not based on that. Luckily, we don't consider filling from our tap to be this, but we can pretend. So, Amat Hamayim Shi Overet B'Chatzer. If you have a water channel that's going through the courtyard, let's so turn back the clock 1,500 years, 2,000 years, and we're now in the head of an empire, and everybody got their nice little aqueducts running on through. So, so in the courtyard, you're not allowed to access the water flowing on through unless there's a wall by the entrance and by the exit. So that would be here. So I guess I view it more as aqueduct, but I guess I'm being argued upon by by Parish Chai. But teach their own. Okay, point being is there's water flowing through your yard, and the question is, how do you use it? We say you have to make sure that there's a wall on each side of the courtyard in order to allow you to access the water beneath. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kotel Shal Gabah Tidon Mishum Mechitza. And so Rabbi Yehuda says, again, this does not sound familiar. Rabbi Yehuda says that the wall on top of even though it's not in the water, we say it works as if there's a mechitza placed inside of the water. So Rabbi Yehuda Masab Amal Shal Avel Shahayim Amalim Menu Al Piza Kain by Shabbat. And Rabbi Yehuda says once there was a water channel passing through the city of Avel, and they used to fill up from it according to the elders of the town, something that they can do so. They said no. The reason why that was allowed is because that was a small enough water channel. So again, the question is, if it's wide enough, in order for it to become a halachic problem, you'd say that it has to be sufficiently wide. If it's less than 10 tefachim wide, the water channel, then you'd be good. Which means that for all of us, in case you're wondering, are you allowed to use your taps on Shabbos? The answer is, well, not only do you have walls surrounding your pipes, because you're normally using your faucet inside of your house, also your pipes are nowhere near 10 Tvachim wide, so not to worry. We're still allowed to use the water that comes in through our pipes on Shabbos. Tanar Banan. Can I read the Gemara? So Asula b'chnisa v'lo asula b'yitzia, asula b'yitzia v'lo asula b'chnisa, im malin henim b'Shabbat. Elim kein asula machitza sar tvachim b'yitzia b'chnisa. Okay, so we have a BAYT that's relevant to our Mishnah, which says that in order for you to take water out of the Amad Hamayim, out of the water channel, you need to have placed if you only placed a wall on the entrance or on the exit of your courtyard, when the water comes in, that's not good. You need to have put the wall on both of at least 10 tvachim tall on both sides. So Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kotel Shal Gaba Tzidon Mishum Mechitza. And Rabbi Yehuda says that the wall on top is enough. You don't need to put anything extra. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda Masa Ba'ama'acha Chaita Ba'a Me'ava L'Tzipori. So they're talking about a very long water channel with Ava L'Tzipori. So this is most likely referring to an aqueduct, unless I'm completely wrong on how geography works. But again, normal water channels would not be able to continue the water. They also have not that much different elevations. Again, if you want to look more onto how the Roman aqueducts worked, please, I'll happily give people a tour of them if in Israel at some point. But again, or you can just look at YouTube for how they did it. Basically, if you're gentle incline and for a very long distance, starting from let's say from a spring to a mountain, that's generally how they worked. So that's what was going on here, and they allowed them to take the water out on Shabbos. Okay, that's why. So here, this one was probably not going on. So and they they used to withdraw water from it on Shabbos. So then Amrulo, so Chaim responded back to Rabbi Yehuda, Bisham Raya, is that really a proof? No, the issue is there that it wasn't 10 tvachim deep nor 4 tvachim wide. Therefore, it was not considered to be its own reshut, and therefore, because it's a makom tur, there's no problem taking things out of it. Okay, now we're going to have some more examples of when we're allowed to take things out. So that's that one. Okay. Tanya Idas, Amad Hamayim Overet Ben Achalonot, Pachot Mishlosha Mishalesh Dli Mumale. Similarly, if there was a water channel passed between the windows of 2 houses, if the water channel is less than 3 tvachim, then either of them can drop down their bucket and draw water. Shlosha Ein Mishalshal Dli Mumale. Right? If it's less than 3, then you can use it. But if it is exactly 3, you can't. So Rishon Gamliel Omer Pachot Mi'arba Mishalshal Dli Mumale Arba. Pachot Mi'arba Mishalshal Dli Mumale. If it's 4 or less, that's good. Arba Ein Mishalshal Dli Mumale. But if it's 4, then that's no good. So this comes down to the. So this looks a lot like the case of. All right. So again, what's the minimum? What's the maximum size that your water channel can be before it becomes a problem? So it's either Tanakama says 3, or Rishon Gamliel says 4. So this looks a lot looks a bit like the machlokes we had about Lovewood again, but here's a reference to minimum size of a rishus. So so now we're trying to figure out what exactly is 3 or 4 handbreadths. So if you're saying that we're talking about the size of the water channel, but don't we have the statement of that Radimi brought us back from Eretz Yisrael, stating that Rabbi Yochanan, that you can't have something be a karmelis, meaning it's usher midrabanan to carry in that area if it's less than 4 tvachim, because anything less than 4 tvachim is considered to be a makom tur. Right? So what are we talking about then? Lema katanai amrei lishmate. So let's say that's not that Rabbi Yochanan's opinion is a such machloket, and therefore Now, so that means that we don't have to. That means that there could be another reason behind it. So, ella ba'akapeh ulahachlif. Rather, the question is in regards to the size of the banks, and the question of are we worried about the people on the two sides of the channel switching the bucket going back and forth between the two sides of the rishos. Okay, so we have another picture for that. No, we don't. Yeah, no, the question here. So we're saying that the question is, again, this is the embankment over here, and that's the question. Okay. So this is the agapea, is this embankment over here. So it's like this is the width of the embankment versus the window. So what point is this? Not saying that we're not talking about the width of the water, because that was mentioned earlier. The machlok, we might have that. Oh, I think I just sorry about that one. I just lost where we were in terms of the pictures. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I was in the middle of the diagram and then I lost the diagram. Here we go. Okay, sorry. So again, so they're talking about the size of the embankment over here, and at what point that's an issue. Because beforehand we were talking in terms of the width of the water, but here the reason why the measurements are much smaller is because we were talking about at what point we say this embankment is its own rishos, not about the water being its own rishos. So it's a different question. Ha ki'ata rodimi amar Rabbi Yochanan makom she'ein bo arba al arba mutar livnei reshut hayachid livnei reshut rabim l'chatef alav l'vad shelo yachlifu. And then the question we have is what about what Rodimi quoted in Rabbi Yochanan a couple dam ago as well about if you have an area that's less than 4x4, meaning it's a makom tour, and therefore it's allowed for both people in Reshut Harabim as well as Reshut Yachid to utilize this space to adjust packages. So therefore, and it's only a problem if they trade. But meaning that seemingly, but those parties can use it then. No. So Hatam Reshuyo Doraita. No, Radimi is saying that what he's talking about is where it's Reshuyo Midoraita. By Reshut Doraita, that's where we're allowed to have both people utilize the Makom Torah. But when we're talking about a case of if something a carmelite or not, and usage of a carmelite, because a carmelite is Durabanan, the Chachamim strengthened the Din Durabanan more than that of the Doraita, because people tend to not take the Durabanan seriously, and that's what would generate, that's what our issue would be. Okay. Vaha Rabbi Yochanan B'Reshuyot D'Rabbanan Nami Amar. But Rabbi Yochanan said a similar thing about. Didn't he say Rabbi Yochanan's statement also referred to Reshut D'Rabbanan? Like we had two statements earlier, but Rabbi Yochanan. So and which one do we say is? So there's actually we have a third now, which is definitely referring to D'Rabbanan, as it says. Kotel shebein shtei chatzerot. If you have a wall between two courtyards, gavoa asara tvachim brochav arba, as long as it's 10 tvachim tall and 4 tvachim wide, ma'arvin shnayim ve'ein ma'arvin echad. If that is the size of the wall, that is at least 10 tvachim tall and 4 tvachim thick, you cannot make one eruv. You need to make two separate eruvin because it's considered to be a full break. Similarly, Hayu, and continuing on in that case, so Hayu Barosho Perod, and if there's fruit on top, Olin Mikan Vochlin, the Olin Mikan Vochlin. Each of them can go up to the this is okay. This diagram that diagram is from a while ago. Basically, so if we had a wall, okay, we'll just use here. We'll use this for as an example, just because we got to make a wall over here. So there's fruit on top of it, right? Okay, so we say normally this wall is a full break between, let's say, the courtyard in the foreground versus over here. That'd be a problem. So Now, then the question is that if you put fruit on top of that wall, assuming the wall is at least 4 tefachim wide, then elu olin mikan v'ochlin, ve'elu olin mikan v'ochlin. Each of them can go up on top and eat eat it, right? But they can't, bring it back down. But they're allowed to, eat whatever fruit was left on top of the wall. The nifrat sakotel, if the wall was broken between the two courtyards, ad eser amot, marvish time. If the gap is less than 10 amot, they can make 2 eruvs. The imratzu marvin echad, or if they wanted, they can make 1 eruv. Because once it's less than 10 tefachim, it's considered to be an entrance, and considered to be a doorway between the two of them, and therefore you can make either 1 eruv or 2 eruvs. But if it's too big, but if the gap is more than 10, then there is no wall to separate them anymore, and therefore they would need to make 1 eruv. And we learned similarly, right? Sorry. As we discussed there, we've got a question on that. So Einbo Arbamai. So the question then is, what if the wall wasn't 4 tefachim thick? Does that change anything in terms of if it breaks down everything else? So Amarav Avir Shtei Rishu Shlatebo Lo Yaziz Bo Lo Nima. So Rav says that there's 2 different areas controlling it then, and therefore you can't utilize the area on top whatsoever. The Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Elu Malin Mikan V'Ochlin, Elu Malin Mikan V'Ochlin. On the other hand, Rabbi Yochanan says both of them can go up on the side and eat, and even if it's smaller than 4 tefachim. So V'az Rabbi Yochanan L'Tamei, T'chiata Rav Dimi Atar Amar Rabbi Yochanan, as Rav Dimi quotes Rabbi Yochanan stating, Makom She'em Bo Arba'a Al-Arba'a, Tar Livnei Reshut Harabim, Livnei Reshut Yachid, L'Chatef Alal V'Vad Shlo Yachlifu. So this works because Rabbi Yochanan doesn't have the issue of it being if the area of the wall is too small, he still allows you to utilize the space. He simply says that you're not allowed to switch to heat. So Rabbi Yochanan's opinion seems to be roughly the same as Rav's from before. Sorry, from the Chachamim, for the case of where it's of the Chachamim, where if it's 4 wide. Okay. So Ha'iz Era Amrei. So then the answer. So then we're saying, wait, so then how can we have both these things in the name of Rabbi Yochanan? Like how's he saying that this is allowed? Like this should be forbidden? So the answer is that Ha'iz Era Amrei. So the answer is that actually that was stated in the name of Rabbi Zeiri stated it, but Rabbi Zeiri had said something else. So that's why even though the 2 statements of Rabbi Yochanan seem to be contradictory, they're not. Well, the Zeiri Kashul doesn't. So that doesn't help us, because then if that's the case, then we have the contradiction between Rabbi Dimi's Rabbi Yochanan and Zeiri's Rabbi Yochanan. So we're still stuck. So what's going on? So the Iri Mukim Lab Amat Mai Mugufa for Dimi Tanaihi. So the answer is that according to Rabbi Zeiri, the Beit we mentioned before about the measurements of the 3 and the 4 is not referring to the embankment, but it's referring to the size of the channel of the water channel itself. On the other hand, Rav Dimi was saying that this is part of the Machloket Tanaim about a minimum size of a makom of a rishus, and meaning that if it's smaller than that, it's makom tur, and that's why it's allowed. So then the question, then we have more questions. Is this reading of Zeiri versus Rav Dimi? They have a kichori karmeli. So if that's the case, then why are we being so machmir for the channel of water? Why don't we consider it to be like the holes on the sides of a carmelit, which is, we say that the holes on the side of a carmelit are considered to be like a carmelit itself. So therefore, shouldn't the water channel be forbidden to use? So Abaye bar Abid, Rabbi Chananya bar Abid, Nami Tarvayu, and Chorn the carmelit. So the answer is that it must be according to Abaye and Rav Chanina, who both say that there is no such, you can't have, there are things that the holes on the sides of Rishut HaYachid or like Rishut HaYachid, and the holes on the side of Rishut Rab or like Rishut Rabim, there is no such thing as holes on the side of a Carmelite. So, because Carmelite is only usher in the area that's Carmelite, but anything that's like, little things, there's places that are adjacent to it and they're sticking into it that aren't large enough to become their own location, they do not make the other areas that are touching them usher. Rav Ashi Amar, Afilu Tema Yesh Chorin LaCarmelite, Hani Mile Bismucha, Halacha Muflaget. Now, Rav Ashi said you could do so. It depends on how on the here. Let's scroll down for the picture of it. We don't have a picture of the holes in the wall. Okay, I think I'm going to stop sharing for now. Okay, so the question is with we had our holes in the wall. So the question is, right? So what case do we say that there's the relevance? Rav Ashi says, if the holes in the wall are right adjacent to the Carmelite, then that's when they're an issue. But if there's any distance in between them, then it would not get the status of the Carmelite, and that's why, assuming there's any gap between the water and the window, that will make things okay. And Eruvin has a different solution. Could go into Avid La Nifke Apuma. So the answer is that one had made places for the water to go out by the edge, and therefore the water is able to go on through, and therefore this water so we have let me see that these. Oh, here we have a picture for that. Let me share that one. Sorry. Here. So what you've done is basically you'd made a here. So what you've done is you'd basically put in, right? You'd widen to get the question is all talking about this gap in the wall over here, how big this gap in between is, right? So you basically had put something as some sort of stopper in the water channel, and now the question is a question, right? Rashi says, and that hamachitza samuch lagpeh betoch oganea mikan v'lo chibra b'em. So basically, you'd put these things on the side of it, and that's why you'd be allowed to access it because of your having done that on the side. Okay, tamayu, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Gamliel, Tamei, and now everybody's following their opinions in terms of the their laws of Lovewood, and as well as of 3 and 4, and therefore the question is no longer about are we talking about embankment versus in the water itself. Rather, we're saying they're both is an embankment and we're talking about the water. But the thing is, you built a third structure, and we're saying at what point is this mechitza we put in the water considered to be sufficient to close in the water to make the water accessible to you on Shabbos? Okay. The next Mishnah. Okay, so Gezustra shehi l'mala min hamayim ein l'mala hemenu b'Shabbat ela im kein asula mechitza gvoa tzar tvachim ben l'mala ben l'mata. Okay, so we have our platform again. It has to be 10 tvachim in order for it to be able to. Again, we have the platform here, and then you have to make a wall on the sides or above in order for us to be able to use the water from below. Similarly, if you have 2 balconies, one above the other one, then if you only made a partition for one of them, not for the other, that would be a problem. You need to have them both make this wall, these walls access to water, or one of them would have rights to choose the other ones, and therefore they would both be forbidden. So Anita Dloka Chaim Akbaya. So it means that our Mishnah is like Chaim Akbaya, who says that that you can do the cutouts. Tanya Chaim Akbaya Omer Gezustra Sheyesh Barba Al Arba Amot Chokek Ba Arba Al Arba Umale. He says as long as that you've got a platform of sufficient size, you can cut out 4x4 tvachim hole in the middle, and then you can treat the remaining parts of the balcony's platform as walls. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yossi Ben Zimra Lo hitir Rabbi Chananya ben Aglaya el b'yama shel Tveria hoyel v'yesh la oganim v'ayarot v'karbefod v'kifodota aval b'shar memot lo. So you're doing a little chazar from earlier today. As Rabbi Yochanan quotes quotes Rabbi Yosef ben Zimra, who says that Rabbi Chananya ben Aglaya's heter was only for the case of by Tveria, and there that only worked because the Kinneret has steam embankments as well as cities, as well as fenced in area all the way around it, and therefore it's considered to be a surrounded by walls, but normally you would not allow such a flimsy partition lighting to draw water. Okay. So Tanar Banan. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about Charanya ben Aglaya. So Shlosh Dvarim Shehitzir Ba or Charanya ben Aglaya Lanchet Tveria. There's three special kulas that we have if you live in Tveria. Malan Mayim Migzustra B'Shabbat V'Tomrin Be'etza U'Mistabgin Ba'aluntit. Okay, so what are they allowed to do? They can draw water from this hole they call the balcony. They may. In general, on Shabbos, there's an isser of hatmana of insulating foods, and it's something that will make it warmer. So he said you're allowed to use this, use etza, which is the pods of certain legumes, and umistabgim balontin, and let them dry themselves on Shabbos with a towel. So again, these are specific heter for those. So now we're going to get into the what each of these are. So we'll only get into one, and then because the rest of them will take us into, so it's let's just do the first one, and then we'll continue with unpacking what each of these things are next time. So Mimalin Mayim could be Zuztra Shabbat. So what do you mean that you're allowed to fill water? So Hadarman. We spoke about that at length, about how we draw water off of the balcony. And what do we mean by you get to do hatmana in these pods? So if one got up early and there still is and you're trying to bring whatever, basically what you use to insulate is things that you don't actually have any other use for, such as hay or other like waste products that you have from harvesting. So if there's any amount of dew on it, and then he wants to use this, and he's using and he uses it, then you run into the issue of that the dew that's on this vegetation is considered to be one of the 7 liquids, and then it'll render things to be susceptible to ritual purity. But if one but somebody only picked it up because he gets up early in the morning, there happened to have been dew on it, then these vegetations that he picked up are not yet susceptible to tumah, because we say that dew would only count if you actually intended to make some use out of the dew. And he was simply stating that the average person in Tveria is somebody who gets up early, and therefore we're not worried about the ritual impurity that'll happen because of the dew, because when they do their work early in the morning. So that's what you're allowing. Okay, and when we said, okay, so I'll squeeze in the last little bit here about the towel. The stabgin balontit mahi would mean that you're allowed to use a towel on Shabbos. The Tanya mistabagadam balontit. Learn the Beit, you're allowed to use a towel on Shabbos. Menicha b'chalon, and leave it to dry by the window. And but you can't, right? So we're not worried that if you dry yourself off, that you'll end up, wringing it out or squeezing it at all. But you may not give the towel to the Eruvin, which is the bathhouse attendant, because the bathhouse attendant probably will squeeze it out, because that was their job, was to squeeze out the towels and let them dry for the next person coming in. Rishon said you can even bring it home the whole way, because we're not worried that you're going to end up wringing it. Then that's not how we pashkin. We generally would not let you. We're a little more nowadays. We're a little more wary of usage of, let's say if you're soaking wet. We're a little more wary about our usage of water of towels. Again, but for more on that, that's a separate story. Okay, it's about the whole. But so again, so in terms of being worried about wringing it out, so that's also something to be wary of. If you're having many people using the same towel and it actually gets to the point where it's actually soaking wet, you should probably, let's say Yadayim, that is a problem, because then you might inadvertently end up being squeezing it out. So if you have many come the day soon, we're all allowed to have company. We have many people over for Shabbos, so you should have multiple towels, because if once the towel gets sufficiently laden with water, we're worried about people starting to squeeze it out again. But until that point, using a towel isn't a problem. Just once it's laden with water, such as what happened, let's say, after they got out of the bathhouse. Again, this is back when it was still mutter to get out of to both go to the bathhouse as well as to go to the or take a shower. Alternatively, they were going to the mikvah in the morning, and that's why they're wet and they're using a towel to dry off. So yeah, okay. So I'll just do a quick recap of what we covered today. So we'll do a pictorial recap as per usual. On days when we had a lot of picture diagrams. So the cases we were covering were the cases of the Rabbi Chaim with his question of, can you view a small hole in the middle and then count the structure around it as being the walls? We we said he only allows in the case of around the area. We mentioned some limitations on how the balconies are in terms of when they're fixed to the wall, how far from the wall can they be, and how exactly we would structure it in terms of being vertical, being horizontal, and vice versa, and how in each case you still have to carry from it. And the reason why these aren't a violation of being dangerous is because it's in the water, and assuming you can swim, it's not too dangerous to fall off of your dock into the water. It's just just might not be so pleasant. Okay, we spoke about that. We also spoke about the case of Gavaya. We said we limited it to more or less this type of structure, which is in the water, because otherwise you would have attached it to your house in one of the other forms. So it really is very much limited what we thought he allowed. We also discussed the case if you have a water channel or aqueduct running through your yard, how you have to have walls on the side of it in order to allow to use it. We then discussed the question of how wide the water channel has to be, as well as how wide the embankments have to be in order for you still to be allowed to access it. And finally, we discussed the case of where we have balconies, one have the other one, and how that'll work, as well as discussing use of a towel, and we one last one. We then mentioned the case of how we put them all together and said that the machloket is also not just about, again, it could potentially also be not about the embankments, but about if you put a wall inside of the water channel, what is the gap between the two sides?
Thank you.
All right.
Have a great day, everybody.
Good day, everybody. See you tomorrow.